Hail Dicelings, and welcome to the L5R beta test. Today we're actually going to generate characters. I've got our friend Murdoch, who will be actually running the adventure and doing the GMing side of things. So I'm real excited because I get to be one of the first playtesters in our group as a character. So from here, I'm just going to toss it over to Murdoch. If you want to do introductions or anything like that, it's your show.
Sure. So I'm Murdoch. Some of you guys know me from running the Dragon Ball Z game here on Drop Dice. Others know me as a frequent player on Chris's channel. What some of other you don't know is that I'm part of the FFG demo team at cons and stuff. And because of that, sometimes I get to play these games and teach people these games at conventions. And the L5R beta looks fantastic. And I wanted to really give it a shot, learn the system, teach other people the system in that sort of fashion. So we're going to be playing by the book today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go left to right on my screen here. Our players, they don't know their characters' families or anything yet, or aren't ready to announce that stuff. We're going to go exactly step by step. So I'm just going to say, Brendan, if you want to say hello and tell us something about yourself.
I'm Brendan, and yeah, I've been playing games with these fools for maybe, I think it's 8 years now.
About that.
Yeah.
Working on it.
We're trying
Chris?
our best.
Chris?
Oh, yeah, it's me. I'm Drop Dice. Yeah, I'm Chris. I run the channel. I do all sorts of crazy stuff on this channel. My big crazy thing right now is going through the L5R beta and making short, easy to consume content about the beta so that I can get more people involved in a game system that has really shaped me as a player and as a person who really loves RPGs. So super excited to try out the new rule set. Whatever my opinions are on it, I'm just glad to see L5R thriving.
Jeremy?
Hi, Jeremy here. Yeah, I'm me. Hi.
Okay. Nate?
Classy. My name's Nate, and I have no idea what I'm going to be doing tonight.
Don't worry about it.
Tom?
Hey, I'm Tom. I've been running with these guys for, 8-7 years now. Definitely my favorite gaming group to date. So, and L5R was one of my favorite systems to play. So I'm really eager to see how this new version pans out.
Okay. And of course, as I said before, I'm Murdoch. And Chris told you guys I'm going to be narrating this version of the game. I will say, if you haven't tried it yet, the L5R LCG from FFG, but I get all the acronyms appropriate.
The L5R card game from Final Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes.
Final Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes, Final Fantasy. It's hard not to say Final Fantasy.
Is really good, Nate, and I have been playing it. I think Jeremy's gotten a game in at this point.
Yeah, I've played
Tons
a game.
Tons of fun. Crane Clan all you.
I know.
Screw you, man.
Crap,
Dishonor on you.
Language.
It's not on your family.
I say that because Nate's playing a Scorpion main house at the moment. Okay, so a couple basics about the setting. Rukagon is a mixture of East Asian cultures from all over. It's set in a place called the Emerald Empire, where honor is stronger than steel. There are a few archetypes, just like any other game. But they're different than fantasy games in such a fantastic way. And I'm going to go ahead, and I believe that Brendan is thinking about playing a courtier. So I'm going to let Brendan explain what the courtier archetype is. Take it away, Brendan.
Okay. Well, first thing you might think of with this game is samurai, swords, katanas, all that stuff, honorable combat. The courtiers are behind the scenes in a game that's really heavily about the RP and the relationships between clans and all that sort of honor and duty that happens in the courts. And yeah.
Okay. That's a good description. I'm going to go ahead and add that in this game and the earlier editions, it is totally valid to play an all core tier game. Like he said, they are usually behind the scenes in most people's games and whatnot. Core tiers are the ones that really, a good example of this would be Crane. Crane Clan are said to be some of the best core tiers in Rukagon, the Emerald Empire.
Your bias.
They no, that's their lore.
No, Crab Clans are the best courtiers. Don't lie,
Jeremy.
All right.
So Crane Clan, they don't spread rumors. That's an ugly word. They spread gossip. And that's how it is. On the other end, another clan, the Scorpion Clan, they're seen as kind of liars and whatnot, and they spread rumors. And whether you believe it or not, in Rukagon, there is a large difference between rumors and gossip, and they have a big impact on people. Even the mightiest samurai, the most honorable clan champion, can be brought down by the words of a courtier. And so that's really important, and that's why one of the things we say is that honor is stronger than steel in Rukagon. But we're going to move there to what most people would think as the meat and potatoes of a battle and as a bushi, and we're going to go ahead with Chris. And go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so real quick before we jump into Bushi, I do want to point out, I think it's good for new people to think about analogs. Courtiers, if you've watched Game of Thrones, any of those people that aren't warriors but do a lot of the stuff that really changes the Empire. Cersei Lannister. That's a good example of
Lannister.
I'm more of a Jaime Lannister kind of person, so I'll be playing the Bushi. Basically, the warrior, the one that is upfront and honorable, the one who gets scrutinized a lot by the courtiers for my actions. Most of the time, I am doing what gets written about in legend, whereas the people who really shape the Empire are people like Brendan's character.
Okay. Bushis are the warriors, like you said, and there's many, many classes, and every clan has different types of Bushis. Chris, why don't you explain to us and everybody there, like, what different types of Bushis there are? What makes different schools different? They all just sword-wearing samurai?
To an extent, yes. There is the Daisho, which is the katana and the wakizashi, specifically the wakizashi, though. Marking you as part of the samurai class. The katana is what marks you as a bushi. But not every school is the same. Like there's the Kuni defenders the Hida defenders, who are kind of the Crab Clan, big, heavy armor wielding, kind of big clubs and huge oversized swords because they protect the wall against demons. And then you have the flip side of it, which is the diametric opposite, the Kakita duelists, who carry a sword, but they view their sword as more of a tool to move courtly relationships along the way. So while they are a good bushi, they focus mainly on dueling, and so that's what their school's about. And each one of the schools, even for courtiers and the other types that we're going to talk about here, each one of them has a specialty that really flourishes from their school. So in previous editions, it worked out to where there was different ranks, and you would get different things that honed into it. In this edition, it's more about expertly going into your school and kind of advancing through kind of a planned route. The way I explained it before we went on camera is it's kind of like if you take a martial arts class to get to yellow belt, you have to show certain skills, and they do that. So most Kakita duelists, once they reach a certain rank, they have very similar things that make them very similar to other Kakita duelists. But when you compare them to each other or even outside of their clan, you're going to see that each one of them is unique, that they've picked up different skills that makes them special to their own character.
Outstanding. Thank you. Jeremy, you've played the much talked about Kunitaru.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us the Shugenja breakdown? What is a Shugenja and whatnot?
Well, I mean, like Chris was saying, the close, analogs and all that. Shugenjas are essentially closely related to mages, wizards, like from other fantasy settings. But what sets them apart from that is the fact that they don't generally wield words the same way from the more advancing in magic, they wield scrolls, scrolls that are usually brought upon by praying to spirits. They're more closely related to stuff like priests. Generally, they're a stand-in for priests, where monks are closely also related in that same sense. But the difference is that they generally can speak to spirits. They and such, all the different kinds of gods, and all that around. So yeah, I would say the closest I can relate them to is priestly mages.
Okay.
But very, very, very what's the word? In the books.
Okay. I would agree. I would say that that's an apt description. I would also point out that Shugenjas, unlike mages in other areas, in other settings that typically are the smartest person in the party or the wisest, Shugenjas in this system are different by nature of that they don't need to be the smartest, the wisest. It's more about being in touch with the elements and then the void between the elements, the five rings, so to speak. You can have, an atypical mage in this setting because they don't have to be the smartest, the wisest, or anything like that. In fact, in this setting, mages or Shugenjas are far more seen as a natural occurrence and their ability to see that stuff than a taught wizard. And they're very closely guarded by their clan. Some clans see Shugenjas differently, obviously, and that what they have access to or what their clan specializes is different by the clans. So thank you for that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
There's one last archetype that doesn't really exist, Tom. What is that archetype?
Well, that would be ninjas.
No, ninjas don't exist, Tom.
Ninjas don't exist.
It's no ninjas. What are you talking about?
Tom, come on. Stop lying. Tell them what you really are.
Hey, so that doesn't really exist. Anyway, the last one, which doesn't quite fit into the other three, would be monks. Now, monks are oftentimes very heavily related to Shugenja because they are very spiritual people. They focus oftentimes on spirits, the gods, and things like that. One of the major differences, though, is they're a bit more, how should we say, mundane. They oftentimes go out amongst the people for purposes of teaching and guiding them, whereas Shugenja are a bit more, let's say, high-minded, dealing with higher spirits and such. One of the other major differences is that monks are also, even more so than Shugenja, focused on enlightenment, particularly personal enlightenment, bringing themselves closer to the higher above, as it were.
Okay. When you speak of enlightenment and all that, what is the type of training or what makes a person a monk in Rukagon? What is it that you see, Tom, that makes you, as a player or a character, when you see a monk being RP'd, how do you look at it? What's your approach to seeing that, or what would be your approach to playing a monk?
Well, to be honest, that actually depends on what order they're from, what clan they're from, things like that. I've seen both very meditative, mental sort of enlightenment, whereas a character I played before, while not a monk himself, saw enlightenment through physical challenge and conflict.
Okay. All right, I like it. All right, and so with all of these types, there's other types of people in Rukagon. Everybody that you see is not going to be a Bushi. They're not going to be a courtier, a monk, a Shugenja, even a ninja. What you will see...
I'm sorry, I missed that last one.
I didn't say anything. I said Shugenja, I think, was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's the one I missed.
Yeah. There's another type of people that exist in Rukagon. Nate, why don't you tell us these people, what they are, who they are, and how they serve the samurai class?
This last group of people is not so much a role in a clan so much as they are kind of an amorphous role in society. They are the Edda. They are considered by some to be less than people, or half humans, I think as some of them are called. They consist of people who handle money. They consist of most merchants, farmers, everyday people like you and myself, just doing what they need to do on the streets. Many of them will provide goods and services. For example, farmers will provide food for the clans because it is seen as a lesser endeavor than that of a Bushi or a Shugenja.
Okay. You know what? I really I couldn't have said that better myself. You know, there's just some things that the Bushi, the samurai caste does not really want to really deal with, and because of that, they have these people that will do that. And occasionally, although rare in the Celestial Orders, some of them can rise and samurai can fall. And you know what? Maybe we'll see that happen. Hint, hint. Is there a foreshadowing filter on Google, I wonder?
I think
So I do want to clarify one thing he mentioned. There are two different classifications below the samurai caste. The one that he would be playing out of is the Bong or Hemin, which is the half-humans. The Edda or the Barakumen are the Hamlet people. Those are the bottom rung of society.
Yeah.
It's a kind of important distinction because each class is treated differently by each class. So I don't want us to think of Nate's character as a criminal. Instead, I want us to think of him as a rice farmer.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert, Nate is going to be starting as a rice farmer or a Henin. So that's a thing. All right. So we're going to start with character creation at the very beginning. One of those things is that, and I always recommend this to anybody that starts to build character, is the first thing is know/understand, have a working knowledge of the Bushido before you even start this game. It's not required that you memorize them or can list them off or anything like that, but you should read them, understand what they are, so that way when you say, ooh, I really like the honor Bushido, that can help you move into a certain clan. If you were just absolutely drawn to honor, you might go, the lion could be a good clan for me. If you were into compassion or righteousness, the crane, duty and loyalty for the scorpion, things like that. They're much more fitted to each clan. One of the clans will usually say this is our most important type of Bushido, and you're supposed to, follow them all. But it can really help change the way your clan works. So from there, then you're going to want to read the different clans and figure out what the different clans are. So far on the beta, we have the Crab Clan, the Crane Clan, the Dragon Clan, the Lion Clan, the Phoenix Clan, the Scorpion Clan, and the Unicorn Clan. So where we're going to go from there is we're going to start and we're going to ask everybody here, our 5 players, what is your clan that you are going to play out of? Now, a lot of times when you choose what clan you're gonna play of, it really basically tells you where you're going for the rest of this. So we're gonna start with Brendan. And Brendan, where did you want to start off? What's your clan gonna be?
I am from the Scorpion clan, which makes things pretty simple with Bushido because all I need to worry about is duty and loyalty.
That's it. Okay. And Chris, what's your clan gonna be?
Well, I'm going to go Crane because there was no Scorpion Bushi for me to play.
Okay. Fair enough. Jeremy, where did you decide to come from?
Oh, I'm totally Crab.
Are you a Cooney again?
I've got to test it out.
Okay.
I think it's fair.
I mean, look, it looks awesome.
So we know that Nate will start as a rice farmer. But Nate, have you chosen narratively what clan that you'll belong to?
I was looking through them right now. I'm struggling between Crab and Crab and Scorpion.
So I do want to discuss one thing. I do like that this version of Fantasy Flight Rules actually brings up a really important thing to the setting that previous editions kind of ignored. If you're familiar with like Romspringer, basically it's this idea that you will leave society and you'll be a Ronin for a while, or you'll not match up with your religion, in that case of Romspringer. I would like to be from the Crane, but on my 1 year stint as Ronin for this game.
Sure. I was actually going to suggest that as Nate plays as a rice farmer, that maybe a monk class would, that rice farming is really kind of how he centered himself, and he's living as a Henin until he can really discover that enlightenment.
I was that actually makes a lot of sense. I was thinking about the Togashi, which I believe are the only monks in the playtest right now.
They are.
Dragon.
I believe they're
Yes,
Dragon. Yeah,
that's the Togashi of tattooed monks.
Surprise. And Tom.
I'm gonna stick with that then.
Okay. Tom.
I am also of the Scorpion clan.
Ooh, Tom is mixing it up.
We almost had 3 scorpions. That'd have been amazing.
To be fair, I considered scorpions earlier.
For
No
this,
one can
I'm
trust the word we say.
Yes, all of you scorpions be my minions.
Okay. What was that, Tom? I'm sorry, we didn't hear you.
For this iteration, I'm going back to my classic character type comfort zone.
Okay. All right. So now, I mean, this is going to be fairly obvious, but everybody that picked a clan, picking your clan, your core identity, as it's called, what clan you belong to, gives you a little bit of what your culture is. So we're gonna say, well, since we have so many Scorpion clans here, we're gonna read off the kind of the Scorpion clan
For
stuff.
those playing at home, character creation starts on page 26.
There you go. So first off, all Scorpion clan members are going to get a ring increase on their ear to +1. They're going to get a scale druggery increase of +1. But there's also something that kind of, what is the Scorpion clan? And it's a group united by the grave purpose to preserve life by killing and let others live out the ideals of honor by staining themselves in dishonorable acts. Most Scorpions stake their humanity on one idea of honor they can uphold, or a personal bond that keeps them from slipping, while others vanish completely into their masks, truly becoming the villains others believe that they are. So what that means, and we were talking about duty and honor for Scorpion before. Scorpion clan, a lot of people see them as, in Rukagon, as dishonorable. There's a joke that in the LCG right now, the card game, that when you play with a Scorpion, they have a lot of honor manipulation on both ends, and they drag you into the mud with them. And that's really a good analogy for how Scorpions work, is they want to drag their enemies into the mud with them while lifting up the rest of Rukagon. They really feel that to get things done, someone has to do the darker things that, say, the Crane doesn't want to do, or the Lion won't sully themselves with. And that's really where the Scorpion flourish, is doing those things. And it's a very important job. I won't disagree, but it is a slippery slope in Rukagon. So with that, we have the Scorpion stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and let Jeremy, who is making his Crab Shugenja, why don't you tell us what the Crab Shugenjas are, and what a little bit about the Crab Clan.
Crab Clan itself, or do you want me to go straight to the Shugenja?
I was telling the Crab Clan.
Crab Clan. Well, unlike the Scorpion Clan, the Crab Clan is honorable. The Crab Clan, we protect the wall, not Trump's wall, but the wall that keeps out the Shadowlands creatures. We're not mindless brutes, but we're generally seen as that because we value duty over anything else. That's our most important tenet in Bushido. Duty to protecting the entire empire, duty to our family, duty to our clan. That doesn't matter whether you're Bushi, courtier, artisan, Shugenja. It doesn't matter. Crab Clan is Crab Clan. They all stick to that duty. So a lot of times we're seen as brutish because of that, because we can sometimes be seen as having a single tracked mind, but not true. We're cool.
Okay.
Hang out with us.
So I'm going to go a little bit in a different route.
Go ahead.
Jeremy says that he's got that duties are very important to the crab, and while I do not disagree, I would say that courage is more important, because even the lowliest bushi, even the highest shugenja is expected to have the courage to face what's in the Shadowlands. And for those that don't know, the Shadowlands is basically where
That place.
all the evil monsters in the world of Rukagon come from. It's in the southern area of the Emerald Empire, and there are Oni princes, demon princes essentially, and varied trolls, goblins, things like that live there that are so far tainted. And we'll talk about what taint is later. I know it's one of Chris's favorite topics. So far tainted that they've lost their ability to sometimes think rationally, or they just want to spread that taint. And because of that, I would say that courage is probably more important, because you can have all the duty in the world, but are you really going to be able to stand there and face that dread? So for the Crab Clan, their ring of choice is Earth. They are very fit. They do walk along what's called the Caillou Wall, that, again, serves to save the Empire. And crabs are, as Jeremy said, usually viewed as brutish to the rest of Rukagon. They're seen as uncivilized in some courts. I know the crane will see them as completely uncivilized, whereas the scorpion sees them almost as a kindred spirit. They see them as they do stuff that the rest of Rukagon doesn't want to do. And because of that, it's difficult for them to really see them as brutish. They see them more as, like I said, as a kindred spirit. Did you have something to say there, Chris?
No, I agree with you on all that stuff. The one thing that I did want to point out is this version of L5R does something really unique. When you pick your clan, you get some special knowledge that's specific to the clan. I'd like to address that, because the one that the crab comes with is pretty...
Sure.
So the like the crab, for example, one of the things that they get just automatically, because you're a crab and you grew up with this kind of stuff in your life, you can identify common Shadowlands creatures such as goblins, ogres, zombies, and you know how to dispatch them, which I think is really cool, because our crab player can be like, oh, it's a goblin. We have to decapitate them and burn the body. Whatever he says, that's what we're going to do ultimately, because he's the expert. And it does put a little onus on the players to understand how those monsters work. But I really like the idea of the fact that the players get a lot of power in that sort of way inside the story. So even if really killing the goblin anyway works, but because the crab firmly believes that we have to decapitate and burn the body, that's what we're going to do.
You know that's going to be a thing now, Chris, right? That's how you take out goblins.
Like that. And then the second thing they get is you grew up hearing stories about different heroes that faced great evils such as Oni. So while you haven't encountered them, he has kind of a working knowledge of Oni, and he understands how the taint works. So that's a really cool thing that is specific to his clan, and a lot of strength that he can bring to the story right away without knowing too much terribly about the setting.
Also,
to know what he can talk about and what he can functionally use.
Also, there's the third bit of knowledge, understanding how the taint actually corrupts a person. So you can see, advanced like signs of taint, that other people would miss, would view as just normal sickness.
I agree, and I would say that part of that is very much player responsibility, and it gives it helps the character and the player take ownership of the story as well. In a home game or a homebrew system where you're using this, it really gives that character a sense of understanding and whatnot to the world. And if you're using the setting as written, it really helps the players get involved and want to know more about their clan and what their knowledges are, to really help the story progress more. So that's a good bring up, Chris. So the next part we're going to go to is, and again, we're not going to talk about every little thing for every clan. We've got our little lane and we're going to stick into it. And if there are questions, you can put them down in the doobly-doo or on Drop Dice's page or whatnot, and we'll be more than happy to answer and talk about all that stuff. Do a follow-up video if there are questions. So next we go into families. Now each family gives you a further ring increase and skills. So think of families as almost a sub-clan. So the clan overall has the clan champion. They're the ones that really tell you. So I'm most familiar with the Crane clan, so that's what we're going to go with. So they have the Doji family, and the Doji family is mostly courtiers, but the clan champion in the LCG is a Bushi, and she's very powerful, but she has the basics of political in her because she was raised in the Doji traditions. Now, on the flip side of that, if someone was raised in the Kakita traditions, even if they went to a Bushi school, they would have some sort of understandings of artisanship and dueling. And those are all very important things to understand, is that your family shapes you. Where you come from shapes you. You may interact with people from other families, and that's your general clan. But your families in Rukugan have separate holdings that they attend to for the clan at a greater setting. So without further ado, we're going to skip right down to the Scorpion because we have 30 Scorpion players. And we're going to start with Tom, I think, this time. And Tom, what family are you from the Scorpion?
I'm from the Soshi family. The Soshi are, well, just kind of there most of the time. They don't stand out much. They tend to just sort of quietly sit behind and keep everything running. Completely unremarkable. Nothing at all. No reason to look further.
That sounds great for a monk, right?
Yeah.
Yes, very much. I can sit quietly in the corner and contemplate enlightenment and not hear what anyone else is saying. Nope.
All right. And Brendan, what family are you coming from?
I come from the Bayushi, who are the head family for the Scorpion, and they sort of embody all of those Scorpion traits we were talking about before. They take on the mantle of perceived villainy in order to do the dirty work that the more honorable clans can't do.
Okay. I will tell you, you're getting a little robot-y.
You may have to just come back in.
A little is not the word.
So what he was saying is that the Bayushi are the head families, for those that anybody that couldn't get it. They're the head family of the Scorpion, and they really embody the duty and doing the things for Rukugan, doing the dirty work for the Empire so that the other families can remain honorable. And I would 100% agree with him there. I'm going to go over their ring increases and skill increases. So the Bayushi family, as a family, gets a ring increase of fire and skill increases to design and courtesy. And this goes along with them being a courtier family, knowing these things. Sometimes in courtiers, even the littlest thing can matter. What kimono you picked. I mean, think of courtiers as always being on the red carpet at the Oscars. Did they wear the right thing? They're judged on that. Is their hair done properly? Did they say hello and thank you and all those things? Even as a Scorpion, it's very important that those things are true for them as well. Are they in that fashion? Is their katana's hilt, maintained properly? Is the pommel nice and shiny? All those things that are important. So that's definitely a plus. Chris looks like he has his baby, so I'm going to go over to Jeremy. And Jeremy, what's your family?
Oh, I am the Cooney family.
Okay, and you've played Cooney so much that I don't think
played one time technically, just one character.
I don't think you need me to tell you much about what's going on with the Cooney family.
I mean, but the people, at home listening, all three of them, they got to know about it, right?
Yeah. So why don't you give us a shot?
So, while and this goes back to what Chris was saying earlier about how a lot of the crab clan generally grow up knowing bits and pieces about the different Shadowlands creatures and all that, and knowing taint. The Cooney take it to an extreme. They are the specialists about knowing the corruption itself. That is the taint. That is the Shadowlands creed. That is everything bad with that part of the world. They essentially, I would say, experiment in understanding the better ways to fight these creatures, how to cure, not exactly cure the taint, but how to best hold back the taint on people who are corrupted too, so they don't gain further corruption. They wield specifically jade a lot. They are usually to fight the creatures. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it other than that. I think that does it.
I think you're absolutely right. One of the things about the Cooney clan is that
That's right. I didn't go over the face masks, the actual face painting.
We'll get there. One of the things about the Cooney family, not clan, I'm sorry, the Cooney family, is their methods in pursuit of corruption and the Shadowlands secrets and all that stuff is so relentless. And that's not only with Shadowland creatures, but any that seek into the Empire. That any Bushi that would come across a Cooney performing these acts of study and whatnot, and we'll say study as a very samurai way to say it, but it would make most other Bushi, Shugenja and whatnot ill at the sight of what they do to these creatures to understand what makes them tick. And so much so that there's also an offshoot of the family school, hold on, Jeremy, called the Witch Hunters. And these are people that specifically think of them as internal affairs for Rukagon, as it pertains to the taint. If you are corrupted, if you are practicing such things that you should not be practicing, that fall under the purview of the Cooney family, they will send the Witch Hunters. They will get you. That is their life's mission, and they are very good at it. And one last thing that he was bringing up is Cooney also have a weird family tradition that they paint their face to look like masks. They don't necessarily wear a mask. They wear makeup. And it's very unique to them. Obviously, they're not the only people in Rukagon that wear makeup. It's very popular for courtiers to wear makeup to remove blemishes and whatnot. But for the Cooney, it's almost their only way of self-expression in the field. They have to delve so hard into what they're doing that some sort of individuality has to come out. And that's really where it comes out for the Cooney. Their ring increases, to get back to a more mechanical state, are Earth. Again, they're the Shugenjas. And their skill increases are survival and theology. Again, kind of showing you that they study, they're learned, and they're out there day to day trying to find these things. With that being the last thing, we were talking about the Dragon family earlier, or the Dragon clan earlier. Nate, why don't you tell us about the family that you chose?
I have chosen to be a part of the Tagashi Order, which is less of a family and more of a collection of individuals. They're a very unique and almost an oddity in Rukagani culture, in that it is not blood ties that keep this, we'll say, organization order together. It's anyone who is willing to, I'll just actually read it out because it's just perfect here. Anyone willing to embrace their teachings and accomplish the challenges required to join are allowed to be a part of the family. They're very, almost a traditional monk in the sense that they seek personal enlightenment, either meditative, physical, spiritual, however they choose to do it. They are also well known for their skill in hand-to-hand martial arts, as opposed to combat with a weapon or traditionally a sword, like most Bushi.
Anything else?
Oh, another an identifying feature for them is that their bodies are covered in tattoos, which embody a particular path that they have chosen to follow.
Okay. So he's talking about the Tagashi Order. Now, it's not necessarily a family, but more of followers of a kami meaning god, Togashi. Whilst they are a family, they don't call themselves like the Miramoto family. They're an order. They will welcome anybody into them, and they're known through Rukugan and the Emerald Empire as whole for their tattoos, as Nate said. In fact, they're usually referred to as the tattooed monks or sometimes the tattooed wanderers. They have a really unique system that if you are going to play at home, again, I would suggest that you read all the family stuff. It's the lore for L5R is amazing, but they're in the beta, they're probably one of the more interesting families, and I believe they're the only monk order. Is that correct, Nate?
I believe so, yeah.
Cool.
Currently. Not the only monk order in Rukugan, but they are the only monk order that we currently have a rule set for.
Yeah. So now that all the players, you guys have your rings and skills from clans and families, right? Everybody,
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Did you want me to discuss my stuff?
You had baby stuff. If you'd like to, you absolutely can.
So I chose the Crane Clan. There's a lot of really good options inside here. Their focus is mostly courtesy and courage. The family that I think I'm going to go with is the Daidoji family. It's a family that I like from the Crane Clan. I go with them pretty often whenever I play Crane. I'm going to get an Earth Ring increase and a plus to my fitness and tactics. But the Daidoji are the more practical side of things, whereas I like to think of the Crane Clan as kind of the showy clan. They have to be up to what everybody expects of them. They're kind of, if you're born into the Crane, you're kind of a mini celebrity just to start off with. People are looking at you. They're constantly kind of checking things out, making sure that you're doing things the correct way. The Daidoji family, however, serves like the military side of things. They're the Yojembos. They operate the trading council. They do a lot of the baseline work that makes the Crane Clan function. They're kind of the linchpin of the families. And one of the things that I really like about them is inside their past. Basically, the whole reason this family exists is because Lady Doji saved a gentleman who took on the name Daidoji, meaning that he would be her servant forever. And so I really like the idea of a clan that takes that rule and just goes to 11 with it. Like they spend generations protecting they protect dojis, the Asahina for their casters and stuff like that. Like they have gone full bore with that concept, which I really enjoy.
That is correct. So I will say that the Daidoji, one of my favorite things of the Daidoji is, you know, they are the most Rukugan friendly kind of family in the Emerald Empire. They are more aligned with every other clan, where the Cranes see themselves as hoity-toity. You know, most other clans are below us. The Daidoji kind of understand how most of those things work. And they have a really cool nickname, Chris. Did you want to tell people what the Daidoji's nickname is? Yeah,
their nickname, mainly coming from that story of Lady Doji, is actually the Iron Crane, which I always dig. It just makes them sound cool.
Yeah, they're probably one of the only families to kind of have that real hard nickname. You know, you don't refer to, you know, Akita as a Kakita as anything other than Kakita, but you can respectfully refer to a Daidoji as an Iron Crane, and they will see that as a badge of honor, and that's kind of unique. Most nicknames in Rukugan are negative, and this is really a positive for them. So everybody got all their rings and skill increases from clan and family?
Yep.
Okay.
Now,
cool.
I did want to point out something. In previous editions, it was... Oh, shoot. Hold on. In previous editions, you had to do special things to be from different families going to different schools. It doesn't seem like that's a thing inside this one.
In the beta, it is not.
So that is kind of fun. Take advantage of that while you can. So if you want to play mix and match with your schools, this is your good opportunity to do it without costing anything.
Yeah. So we've talked previous before this, and one of the things that gamers tend to do is what's called min-maxing. Is, you know, they build towards a certain path and they want to go straight down that path, and they want to be as proficient at that as possible. Now, I will say that if you go down that route, you'll be extremely proficient in Rukagon at one thing. Really, really good, in fact. So good, you will probably be nigh unbeatable at that one thing. The problem with that is that once you're nigh unbeatable at that one thing, we'll say, for example, dueling. So good at dueling, just fantastic. You can beat a master of any other school, but your dueling is just that good. But you know, one of the courtiers, you know, you need their wife or whatnot in a duel. All of a sudden, you're a rice because you weren't able to deal with the courtly politics in Rukagon. So while you could min-max with the beta as it is written, please remember that min-maxing in an L5R is typically not very smart. You want to be diverse. You want to be good in what your school is, but you want to be diverse enough that you can take attacks from all sides, that you can weather that. So even as a Kuni crab who is, you know, just abhorrent to most other people with their experiments, they also have to understand courtesies. They have to be able to navigate the courts to seek those people out that are tainted, that are corrupted. They can't just walk up and go, you're tainted and I'm going to kill you, because they could be accusing a clan champion. They have to know how to navigate those politics. And it's very important that they can do that. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be the best politician out there and all that, but they need to be good enough that they understand what's going on, how to defend themselves and their claims. And so definitely, as you continue to build with the role in school, you want to make sure that you're picking that stuff up. So we've already discussed what everybody's role is, courtier and whatnot. So now we're going to go into schools. So Brendan, I see that you're back. So why don't you give us your school?
I went with the Bayushi Manipulator. That's the courtier school that's currently available for Scorpions.
Okay, and what about them? What drew you to them?
Like we've been talking about with the Scorpions, they're not exactly the most honorable when it comes to their courtier skills. They spread rumors, they blackmail people, they drag them down into the mud with them, because everyone already perceives a Scorpion as those types of people, but they have a really uncanny ability for making everyone else also dishonorable.
Okay. So with that, Brendan's going to get a ring increase of air and fire, and he's going to get to choose 4 different skills. Now, there are several that he can choose from, but he's got to choose the skills that he wants to increase. Now, techniques are something we'll go into a little later, but he's got available techniques. Techniques basically are, they change based on what you're doing. So there's kata techniques, which are martial art technique. Shuji, which I don't know exactly what those are just yet. Chris, are you familiar with Shuji?
They're basically courtier techniques.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unfamiliar with words. Chris, you're muted. And then we have rituals. Rituals are more of like meditative techniques and things of that nature. And then, of course, he gets starting techniques with his school. These are techniques that everybody gets from his school. So these are important. And then he gets his school ability. School abilities are things that, again, everybody in that school gets, but they can, as they get better in their school, these abilities will get stronger. So, Brendan, why don't you tell us what your school ability is?
It's called Weakness is My Strength. The Bayushi Manipulator School teaches that any disadvantage can be exploited, any flaw in armor turned into a fatal gap, any stain spread to ruin a reputation. When you exploit a target's disadvantage as part of a scheme action, you may reroll additional dice up to your school rank.
Okay. And so a scheme action is part of a new system that this is using that old systems really didn't use. And this is a good segue to get into that, is that before court conflict, as I will call it, court being the face-to-face talking conflict, or sometimes not even face-to-face conflict, is usually left up to the players in the RP. And now that is great. And if you're capable of doing that, fine. But I don't know about anybody else. But I don't think Brendan's the type of person that knows how to lie and cheat his way through hundreds of people while keeping all the strings together. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody in this channel right now that is able to do that.
Maybe that's just how I want you to perceive me.
Yeah, I would not disagree. So with that being the case, the conflict, the social conflict combats that they have allow somebody that's not capable of doing something in real life take on that ability. I mean, just like in normal fantasy conflicts, I don't have to know how to swing a sword to sling a dice and roll. But you do know how to be able to talk your way out of a situation with a king. And that's doesn't really make a lot of sense when your character is supposed to have a 20 charisma, but you can't really figure out exactly what to say. And this system allows that to be okay. Now, I'm not saying that you should, as a narrator, allow your players to just roll the situations out, but definitely it gives them that opportunity to do so, to make those things that they're not, or to make those checks that they're not capable of doing themselves. So with that being the case, did Tom run away? There he is.
I'm here.
Tom, why don't you tell us what school you're going for?
Well, I'm going for the Shiroso monk school. Yes. Yes, that's totally a thing.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Cat's out of the bag, Tom.
All right.
I don't know what he's talking about.
So, in reality, while my particular character may be posing as a monk for his own reasons, he has attended the Shiroso Infiltrator School, which is the ninja school that is available in this playtest. As the name implies, most of his actual training is going to be focused around stealth and misdirection. His job is to essentially sit in the background and not be noticed while picking up every little last secret he can.
Okay. And why don't you tell us about your school's ability? We've talked about the techniques and ring increases and whatnot. Why don't you give us what the school ability does?
Well, the school ability is Path of Shadows. Essentially, it is focused on attacking an opponent that is not aware of your presence. Either their back is turned to you or they are asleep. When you strike them when they are so unaware, you do extra damage.
So it's kind of like sneak attack.
Yes.
Okay. It's pretty good for a shinobi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why don't you tell us how ninjas are perceived in Rukagon? Why do we keep making the joke of, we don't know what you're talking about?
Well, when you ask anyone in Rukagon about ninjas, the most common response is, they don't exist. This is mostly due to their exact nature and the level and the way certain etiquette and politeness is done. Being a ninja, doing the things they do, is extremely dishonorable and frowned upon, to the point that it is completely banned and illegal within the Rokugan. As such, well, you still need people to do ninja things, though. So, in order to keep a sort of plausible deniability, the general polite lie that floats around the upper courts is ninja do not exist. So obviously, how could I have one?
Okay. Thank you, Tom. So we're going to go ahead, and I think that the next person, Chris, are you up to do Bushi stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
So the school that I chose to go with was Kikita Duelist. That is the Bushi option for Crane in this playtest, which I really like because that's kind of an iconic to L5R. So I'm really interested to see how they play out. And Murdoch's played one before for our games, So we'll have kind of a good staple point to compare and contrast about how what we like and what we might see kind of missing from this playtest. But with that in mind, my ring increases are +1 to earth and air. I get 5 skill selections, which I decided on my skill selections, and one of them I had to actually look up because I wasn't sure how it worked, was sentiment. I thought that was a really interesting option because it's basically a way for you to feel out how the other person in the situation is feeling about things. It's a very like Counselor Troy type skill. So I really liked that one. I, of course, went with martial arts melee, courtesy, meditation, and fitness, which are kind of like what you'd expect for me to have, but I thought sentiment was kind of a cool thing that I could add to my character.
I agree.
The techniques that I can pick out are kata, shuji, and rituals. So mostly I'm going to be working with sword techniques, political techniques, and then the rituals like tea ceremonies and things like that. My school ability is called Way of the Crane. It basically says that my school is so good about their strikes that other schools pale in comparison. When I get a critical strike, I can adjust what that critical strike is, whether it's a +1 or a -1 on that chart. So if I rolled, like, for example, let's say an 8, I haven't looked at the chart, so that may not even be correct. And 8 says that I chop off a leg, but I don't really want to do that. So instead I choose the number 7 option, which is kind of cool because it allows me to possibly not make a duel end so terribly in my favor. Because if you take off the wrong person's leg, even though they were in the wrong, it will have repercussions.
Yep, and again, that goes back to what we said about being a Bushi and still having to deal with the court politics. If he's absolutely right. If he takes off somebody's leg, and even though the duel was allowed and was seen as honorable, he might have to deal with our Bayushi infiltrator, or the Bayushi infiltrator will have to whale and deal to get some information. Or what's the Bayushi school? Infiltrator? Is it infiltrator?
Yeah.
Manipulator.
Manipulator, thank you. The Bayushi manipulator will have to use his rumor mongering skills, his knowledge and stuff, to possibly get that duelist out of some trouble that he would otherwise suffer.
That's actually one of my starting shuji. I get the option between cadence and rustling leaves. Cadence would let me send messages just by body movements while I'm talking in court. So I could send separate messages that I don't want to say out loud. And the one I'm taking is rustling leaves. It makes it harder for people to trace rumors back to me.
See, so again, really cool mix and match there. Now, we talked about Shugenjas before, and let's hear about the Kuni Shugenja school. Go ahead, Jeremy.
That would be the Kuni Purifier School, which I like. I like the term they went with in this one. I don't know, just because it feels just a bit more natural with it. But yeah, the Kuni Purifier School. Actually, if I won't lie, I have not fully read the.
Sure. Do you want me to take it over for you?
I can read the little excerpt.
No, I was just going to go with what's the school ability and explain invocations, what invocations are, because that's a technique.
Yeah, I think you've read a little bit more into the
Sure.
beta than I have.
Sure, I'll go for it. So techniques available to the Kuni Purifier School. One of the techniques available is invocations, and those are the scroll casting. Really, those are your typical spells. And so they have access to that, and they get Armor of Earth and Jade Strike. So we were talking before, and Jeremy said that they carry some Jade with the Kuni. Jade is very important because it is very damaging to Shadowland creatures and tainted peoples. And so Jade Strike is just a prayer, so to speak, a scroll that casts Jade that flies out and attacks your enemy. And typically it doesn't hurt people that aren't tainted, which is why the Kuni Purifiers like it. Now, a character/player may be tempted or fall into the gaze of, well, just let me Jade Strike them. And a crab could fall for that. A crab could fall down that path. But it's not appropriate. And I don't know. We'll let Tom explain why just Jade striking everybody in existence to find out if they're tainted is not appropriate.
That's interesting considering our last campaign, Murdoch.
I think that's the joke.
That's the joke.
Don't go around hitting people just because it doesn't hurt them for taint. You still fucking throwing rocks at them. Sorry, excuse me. You're still throwing rocks at them, you know, that are spiky, and it's still hitting them. It still hurts. It still hurts.
That's why I wore my armor all the time.
That's not cool, bro. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, Tom, why do you not Jade Strike everybody in existence just to find out if they're tainted?
Well, again, it's very much about presence and the high culture and things like that. You don't just come out and accuse someone out of nowhere of having taint. That is a very serious accusation. Like, if you don't have proof other than "let me Jade Strike you," then that is a severe insult in of itself. And in most places, they can directly just say, "No, go away. This is a baseless insult." And terrible things will happen to your clan's image and things like that.
Exactly right. So he couldn't be more right on that. It is exactly as he said. Now, another the school ability for the Kuni Purifier is that it's called Gaze into Shadows. And what it is that you stare unflinchingly into the darkness, as we talked about before, you know, the courage being very important. And mechanically what it does is when you make a check targeting a being you know to possess Shadowland creature ability or taint, you may choose a number of your kept dice up to your school rank, showing the result of what's called the strife. It's a single cherry blossom result. Alter each of these dice to any facing showing a success, which is a ring, like somebody was calligraphing a ring. That's kind of the way. And so in that way, it really exemplifies the CUNY Purifier's ability to take on these creatures that really, to use a boxing metaphor, would be out of its class, out of its ability to strike normally. And last we have the monk. So why doesn't Nate tell us a little bit about that monk school? Nate, you're muted.
I was muted. I elected to go with the Togashi Tattooed Order. So for ring increases, I have +1 to Earth and +1 to Void, which is pretty interesting. For skills, I have what you'd expect out of a traditional monk. I have access to fitness, various kinds of martial arts, survival, meditation, and theology. I can actually perform a limited selection of magic. And in particular, what makes the Togashi monk order so unique is their ability called Blood of the Kami. So as we said before, the Togashi monks adorn themselves with mystical and spiritual tattoos that actually grant them supernatural abilities. For every rank in the school I can have one additional tattoo, and it grants me a free, I forget what it is. I think it's a free opportunity result whenever I make a skill check of that type.
Okay. And give me an example of the tattoo you picked. What was the tattoo you picked?
I believe I'm going to go with the River Tattoo, not even for the skill, but for the role-playing implications. Because the little story I have in my head involves a nearby river out of which he decided to survive for a little while. But we'll get to that part later. Okay. The River Tattoo grants me an additional it says to when performing a check with a skill for which you have the associated tattoo, add 1 rolled ring die showing 1 opportunity result.
Okay. So you said you had limited magic. Now, what's the difference between your magic as a monk and the invocations of a Shugenja? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the difference there? Or do you need me to do it?
So mine are called Kiho. I forget what the difference between the invocations and Kiho are. But when I say mine are very thematically limited. Like, of the options I'm allowed to pick from, 4 or 3 of them are Element Fist. And one of them is Chi Protection, and the other is Earth Needs No Eyes.
So Kiho comes from your chakras. Think of, for those out there that have watched Naruto or something similar, it's not unlike their jutsu. Kiho is more along their ability to manipulate the rings inside one's self to perform acts. So when he says he has the elemental fists, he's manipulating, the Kiho might be to manipulate the fire ring to add his fire to his punches and things of that nature. Now, he's not going to be able to create an earthen grasp, which a Shugenja can do. A Shugenja earthen grasp is a hand of earth comes up and grasps somebody. You know, when that's at a distance. More or less, Kiho are things that are personal, are in close contact with the monk and their inner abilities. So whilst the invocations of a Shugenja involve the energies around them as well, monks are very centered on oneself. So now that we've picked schools and whatnot there, we go to honor and glory. Okay.
We do have a step right before that, actually. The how we stand out from our school. It's the personal stat choice, basically.
Okay, sure. I didn't see that in the beta. I was just trying to go step by step to the beta.
It's like right at the tail end of the schools. They didn't break it apart very clearly inside of there.
Yeah, you are not incorrect. So the fourth part here is, how does your school stand? How do you use your character stand out within their school? It's even in the training system as regulated as that of a doji. Different students excel in different areas. So characters are allowed to, or players, I should say, are allowed to choose options that increase the rink rank. I think that's probably a ring rank.
Yeah, that's the typo.
Typo there, by a specified amount. So, Chris, since you're the one that brought it up, how did your character stand out from their school?
So, I was kind of thinking about this. I think I want a character that's more earthly bound. Each of the rings represents something about the characters, and I really like the idea of earth being thoughtfulness, patience, and calm, especially for a duelist. Like I have this idea of like a reserved duelist. He's only going to go into duels when it matters, kind of thing. So I think earth is the way I'm going to go.
Okay. So Tom, your shinobi, how does he stand out?
How do I put this? He stood out by not standing out, if that makes sense.
I was about to say, he doesn't.
Like, not necessarily like within his school per se, but like relative to other people, he does not stand out. He's a very bland, average person who, by nature of his looks, by nature of the way he acts, just kind of fades into the background.
So it sounds like adaptability, friendliness, and awareness of +1 to your water ring is what your character wants.
Sure.
That's your character's willingness to roll with the punches, for, I can't say that word, gregariousness, there it is, or understanding of the environment stands out among their peers. You tend not to get stuck in mental ruts the same way many people do, or at least they have ways to get out of them afterwards. Really, you're going for more of that adaptability type situation. You're just, you fit in. You're friendly. You fit in, and you're always aware of what's going on around you. Brendan, how does your character stand out?
Okay, well, I had a little bit of an interesting thing here because of my prior choices with my clan, family, and school. My fire and my air ring are both already at 3, which means they can't go any higher. So I ended up with either water ring or earth ring. I decided to go with the earth ring. So my character, the air ring and the fire ring, that sort of passion and the grace and eloquence are drilled into him through the school and his family. But sort of him as an individual person, his thoroughness, patience, and calm, he sort of sits back and is able to use those other traits in a thoughtful manner.
Okay. Cool.
So I
like
totally
it.
forgot about that +3 cap. I'm gonna have to pick something else as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't know either.
I think I'm
But
gonna
you
go
use that Earthring spam, huh?
I think I'm gonna go with Void. I think that kind of still fits the idea that I'm going for well.
Okay. Jeremy, tell us about your character. How did he stand out? Is Jeremy speaking to anybody?
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm going with the Void one, the Void Ring, because the way I see it is that he always tried to pick up on things. Tried is the best way to put it. On things that nobody else picked up on. Not always picking up the right things, but always picking up something.
Okay.
So he's a bit. He's always seen a bit of as a bit of a stumbling fool, but sometimes when he hits hard.
Okay. So more of you're going after the self-awareness and insight instead of the mysticism of the Void Ring. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. And lastly, we have our rice farmer.
I was going to go with Earth to sort of personify the idea of patience. But again, Earth Ring is already at 3, so I can't. So I'm not going to select that one. I think I'm leaning towards the Fire Ring on the other side of that coin for creativity, passion, and drive. I like to see the character as typically friendly enough, like he'll engage, but when he starts talking about something that matters to him, he tends to get very energetic and passionate about it. And he's able to kind of inspire interest in something in others, even when they had never really thought or known about it before, simply by virtue of how much he loves the thing he's talking about, or is sharing or expressing with somebody.
So like the exact weight of a Koku, for example.
Yeah, exactly, and how they're made, and why they have 5 ruts and not 4 ruts, and the story behind that, and like he's so interested that interest almost carries a charisma of its own, and begs the attention of other people.
I love it. So now that we've figured out how everybody here differentiates, stands out, we'll go with stands out. That sounds better in my brain. From their school, we're going to go with part 3, which is honor and glory. What this means is honor and glory. So what is your character's duty to your lord? So samurai only really serve and care about their duty to their lord and the empire. Now, you serve at your daimo's pleasure, basically. You want to go do something? Well, you can't just go do it on your own. Your daimo has to order you to do it. Now, this comes back to the old Japanese real samurai, that they were, they were part of the shogunate, and that they were administrators above being warriors. And part of being an administrator is, kind of paying lip service or understanding to the boss. So when you get this, you get on everybody's character sheet, there's a section, Chris, do you want to hold it up, called Giri, is how your character acquires esteem in the eyes. There you go. He showed everybody on the thing. How it acquires.
I'm sorry. I actually put up the 20 questions worksheet in the back, which is actually really handy. I made sure I printed it off so I could follow it, so I could give proper feedback. They want to understand in the Gary, really what is your duty. So you write down your answer on your character sheet. So I want everybody to take a minute to just really write down what their duty is. So when you're doing this, there are several things that you might want to ask your character, or the narrator. They keep referring to a GM, but I've heard the term narrator for these types of games. Who is my lord? What do they want? What are their goals? So, for example, the Bayushi, if I say to Brendan, okay, your lord is Kaden Bayushi, and Kaden is a man who sees the crane as an eternal rival. He doesn't see the yin-yang dichotomy of the crane versus the scorpion
and now this is just totally theoretical. What he sees is they don't have the necessary abilities / desire to truly serve the Emperor. They can't do what truly needs to be done. And so that's how he sees it. Now, how do you serve that lord? How do you serve a lord like that?
Is that the lord I'll be following in this game?
No, but I'm just saying, like, this is how they would have to do it with their narrator.
Mm-hmm.
So in that theory, what would you see your duty to that lord to be?
So if you are stuck, there are some example geary on page 24, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Brendan, you are breaking up again, so you may want to refresh after this.
Okay. Well, looking at the examples, I guess if I were to be a diplomat, I could work for the Scorpion's ends at court while trying to diminish the Crane.
Okay. So that would be his duty to his lord. His lord is pleased by this because he's showing, Brendan's character is at court showing, that the Crane are not as good as the Scorpion when it comes to diplomacy and the politics of Rukagon. And even though the Scorpion are seen as almost swine-like, willing to basically eat or do anything, that they're better at doing those things than the Crane are, and that they're capable of doing things that the Crane would never see. And because of that, it makes them better. So at this point, narratively, for what we're doing, I'm going to let my players create their own lords and let them really flesh out what's going on in their backgrounds. I feel personally, as a narrator, it makes the world more friendly. It makes the players more invested in what's going on when they see their creations and the NPCs that they create moving around. So that's the thing that they're gonna do in their off time between now and next Tuesday, theoretically next Tuesday, barring people getting stuck at work, Chris. So now that we've discussed that, we're going to go, what does your character long for? And this is basically, again, to go back to the Naruto, they call it the ninjo. But in Naruto, they called it Nindo, his ninja way. And this is, ninjo's your samurai way. What is not only your goal, but your dreams? What is it that you are suffering through this life for? Is it to come up in position? So we're going to go to Nate on this one because he's a monk who in theory wants to achieve oneness within himself, but he's spent so many years as a rice farmer that no one knows he's even a monk anymore. He's spent so much time outside of his school that he hasn't really practiced any of his school traditions anymore. He's just an old man with some kids and a wife farming some rice. So what's his dream?
There are samples on page 23 of Ninja as well.
You know what? I think I got one. So the Togashi order is, again, a little unique in that they don't necessarily have a ruling lord. They serve the ideals and philosophies of the Kami Togashi, the originator of their clan. And this order in particular seeks out the Dragon Clan seeks out personal enlightenment and sincerity as their primary focus. So I think what I'd like to do, he's been a rice farmer for so long. He seeks all ways in which rice sort of flow into the kingdom and how they help people. Yes, it is just food, but it provides work for people. It provides a means by which others can serve, by which one can serve others in a selfless act. And he wants to sort of showcase that. In addition to that, in his years, he has learned the arts of making sake, which involve rice in several different steps along the process. One of these is through milling and a whole bunch of other things, and the pursuit of perfection in its craft. So I guess his dream would be to bring back like this ultimate brew back to his order as a as a symbol of what he's learned in his years abroad, I guess.
Okay. So with that, I have a few questions. Now, yes. Is this Nindo you want, or Ninjo, excuse me, something you want to see your character pursue or contend with during the story? Even if he doesn't find it pleasant.
What do you mean exactly?
I.e., is this something that, if we were to play an extended campaign, for example, is this something that you feel should come up? Is this important enough to your character that, say, for example, you're meeting with a lord and he's a drinker, that possibly to gain fate, the Bayushi manipulator asks you, I need you to make this brew. And you go through the process of making this brew only to find out that it's terrible. This lord hates it. Is that still an experience that this character would want? Absolutely.
I think for good or bad, one aspect of the dragon that is very unique amongst the dragon is that sincerity being their primary, I can't remember what the word is, aspect of Bushido. Okay. A lord would prefer for his subordinate to tell him the truth and instead of what he wants him to hear, even if in another court, perhaps what the truth would actually be something possibly insulting or dishonorable. A dragon would much prefer to hear the truth. So absolutely, I would want to find out that what I'm doing is not actually enjoyable to people, is something that people don't want. That way I could down the road change the recipe or change the methods.
Okay. Do you feel like this is likely to arise no matter where the campaign takes the character? Do you feel that your desire for perfection in this brew of sake to prove your years of, enlightenment have gone for naught? Do you think that it will arise no matter where you go? That you can make this a thing that that you can work it into the story enough that no matter where we go, even to the Shadowlands, that this can come up?
I do. Part of I've actually done a little bit of research in my past about the making of sake. It takes months, up to a year even, for a particular batch to be ready in some cases. Most of it's usually crafted during the winter because it's the only time that you're really able to keep it cold and refrigerated to keep it from spoiling during the crafting process. So while everybody else is out at court, the Tagashi order doesn't do very much, or I wouldn't do very much in the actual courtly affairs. I would be managing my brewery, and actually making sure that that's taking everything I've learned in the last year and applying it to this next batch.
Okay. Now,
and that's something I can. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so here's the last question I have, and what this one is kind of difficult to say. So, say your lord, the master of your order, gives you a task, and you had planned instead to ask the master of your lord to go to meet a artisan from this little clan called the Hair Clan. And this little master of the Hair Clan has recently won several sake tournaments or championships for having the greatest sake. And you turn around and he says, I can't have you do that. I got to go over here. Do you feel that your desire for perfection is so important that there's an internal strife in that character to defy the Lord to go do that? To go seek out that master from the hair?
On the words of the master of my particular order, no. If it was somebody of lesser stature, absolutely that struggle would be there. The ring I was originally planning on taking for the personal thing was Earth, and I was going to embody the idea of patience. One, because a lot of the brewing process is just waiting for something to ferment, or for allowing it to age 6 months to 12 months or however long. So patience is a very important aspect of it, to not rush the process.
Okay, so let's change that a little bit. So you know that you've been planning on making this trip to the Hair for a long, long time, and that this master is going to die. He's contracted a disease, and that you must make this travel now. And that your master of your orders are, minuscule. They could be done by anybody. That he just chose you to do it because you were there. Are you tempted then?
Absolutely, I'm tempted then.
Okay. So a good ninja is something that means enough to you that you would pursue it, cause a serious temptation, up to and including violating the Bushido code. And it sounds like your desire for perfection of your sake meets that. So when a player decides to make their nindo properly, it should be something that your character wants to do during the story, that it means enough. That no matter where the character goes, that it's something that's on their mind. He's in the Shadowlands and he sees a rare herb that could flavor the sake differently, and so he picks it up. It's always something in his mind that he's looking at and thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, it should be a course of strife for a character. Because not everything is always good. Not every dream is just going to fall in your lap. And if you really want perfection, sometimes you got to really debate on where I go with this. Is it worth the risk? And sometimes to that character, it's got to be yes, and sometimes it's got to be no. But if your ninja does not meet these specifications, is it really something that's that important? Is it really a true dream? And that's something that every character and every player needs to think about when they're making these. So again, this is something that I'll let my players decide off screen about what they're going to do, but we will talk about it next week. So now we go into the next part of it.
I do want to mention
Sure.
Fantasy Flight's suggestion is to make your Giri and your Ninja kind of already conflict with each other, because it already sets you up for that samurai drama that you get with the kind of films that this is drawing inspiration from.
So he is absolutely right. That is correct.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to go in opposition. If you feel that you can make it work, you should. But remember that this game is all about the drama of the person and the environment they're in. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. Now, next part is, what is your opinion of your clan? And since I already know Jeremy's opinion of his clan, and we've talked to Brendan about his Gary, let us go to Tom.
Well, my character wholeheartedly believes in the Scorpion clan and its ideals. That someone has to get their hands dirty in order to keep the rest of Rokugan clean. So, yes.
Okay. So, that being the case, then you would get a +5 glory based on the fact that you were seen as an upstanding member of your clan, and that your reputation is such that people respect you and your opinion. Now, if we went and said that, for example, Chris, your character disagrees with your clan's beliefs that they're hoity-toity, or that perfection is something that can be or should be strived to be obtained, you would gain a rank in additional skills. So, or in a skill that you chose. So, for example, if you chose Scorpion Clan Labor, and you said that the Crane, we pass off too much to our Henin. We play too many games. We don't do enough. And you've disagreed with your lord that, hey, it's harvest time, and we know that our Henin can't get all the harvest out, that we need to be there to help, and your lord's just like, but that's not samurai work, I forbid you to do it, and you have this disagreement in court, and it's well known, then it makes sense that Chris might take a Scorpion Clan labor skill and say, no, we need to be out there doing this stuff as well. It's the only way that we're going to prosper. And so, you can have differences of opinion with your clan and your lords, and they do have that fundamental impact. And so that's something that all the characters are going to have to decide. And it also allows for great background and story building for your own character. So let's keep that in mind. Chris, you're gonna get this one. What does your character think of Bushido?
So I kind of thought about this, and I decided that I'm going to break away from my family. While I value all points of Bushido, I think there's been a point where my character in his past has been around his family thinking it's okay to verbally discuss these things when it really wasn't appropriate. And he basically revealed that he believes that duty is more important than courtesy. So I'm going to diverge from my family's line of thought on Bushido, and I'll be able to pick up a skill increase. And I'm going to go with medicine as kind of a callback to the other Kakita duelists that we've had at this table before.
Okay. So with that, I'll give a little bit of history for everybody that's not involved here. Previously, I played a character called Kakita Isamu, who was a Kenshinzan, which is an advanced crane duelist, or advanced Kakita duelist. Basically, once you become a Kenshinzan, you're seen as one of the best duelists in Rukugan. He was very much about duty, so much so that he was almost ostracized from the Crane clan as a whole. And to this day, in Chris's world, the 3 Feet of Death, his Rukugan setting there, his name is spoken with a certain reverence, and in other places, the Lord doesn't even want his name spoken because they feel he's so dishonored. But one thing that he did do was medicine, and the Crane clan's or courtesy, devotion to courtesy part of the Bushido. And for him, he touched corpses in blood himself, even though you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to do that kind of work as a samurai. It's demeaning, it's gross, and it just is completely outside of your purview. And it even exposes you to the taint sometimes. But he did it because he knew he had a duty to the emperor to try to work with the Kuni clan to try to fix the taint problem. He knew that if he could figure out how to save lives more effectively, then those on the wall, the Kaiyu wall, would be safer. He knew that the people of Rukugan would live a much fuller and natural life. And it sounds like Chris sees this, and he grew up in a clan that, or a family that saw this as a positive thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking that like the main house, the Daidoji themselves, because they're mainly like bow warriors and things like that, they would see value in understanding medicine, at least at a base level. So I thought that was a good skill to pick up.
Yeah,
Plus,
I like it.
We've done.
I like it. Okay, so now we go into strengths and weaknesses. So strengths and weaknesses. Thank you. Oh, the most beautiful woman in the world just showed up to give me some Taco Bell. The most beautiful food in the world. So we're going to go back to the Bayushi Manipulator. What is your character's greatest accomplishment so far?
Okay, so I've been thinking about this a little bit, and going back to my Nindo, or not the Nindo, but the Giri, my duty to my lord. I was looking some more, and since we have a monk in the group, I'm actually leaning more towards Spy Master for that, so I'll be more of like a information gathering type character. And so my greatest accomplishment is during Winter Court 1 year, I managed to gain information on a assassination attempt that was going to happen, and I managed to work behind the scenes in order to not only save my my lord, but to root out all the conspirators.
Awesome. So now what we do is, now that Brendan has picked and kind of put a story to his greatest advantage, what we do is we go down to page 61 and we pick and we say, what is the advantage that helped him accomplish this? So what that means is, you know, did he have an ally and he would get that advantage of ally? You know, you know, does he have blackmail on a character? You know, was he, you know, a dangerously allure for a woman that maybe was at court, and he was able to coax that information out of her because of his good looks and his charm? Because, I mean, that beard is just sexy. So with that being the case, this allows you to take a kind of reason why you have that accomplishment, and you get an advantage for it. So, or a distinction. So there you go.
I actually did pick one already. I took a subtle observer. It makes me able to. I can notice the little things about people's emotions. I can pick up subtle cues, and I can also read lips.
Cool. Okay, Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
Yep, I just figured it out. Since I'm making a duelist, and my idea is like
I wasn't talking about your accomplishment. I was going to go to the next question.
Oh, fair enough.
Because there's so many steps, I figured it would be nice to one person to kind of do each step.
I was going to say I kind of want to mule it over along with my duty to my lord and what my character long for, because I think they all go hand in hand.
But what do you think holds your character back the most in life?
Let's see. Some examples it gives in here is like quirks such as naive, selfishness, bad temper, or it could be physical ailment or disability. Actually was reading about the duels, and there's this really cool part where they talk about the different approaches you can take during duels. And for the Earth approach, it talks about focusing on your weaknesses and trying to overcome them, accepting them. And the example they give is like missing an eye. And I really like that. So I'm totally going to take Fantasy Flight's example there. And I think I'm going to have like legitimately like one eye is just slashed and ruined. It's physically there, but it's just gone.
Does your character wear an eye patch?
I think he would in court because it's expected of him from the other Crane members, but like outside of court, he probably doesn't.
Almost turning that into an advantage by showing that to your opponent, you know, allowing them to be almost intimidated by it.
And then the other thing that I think, just for the fun of it, like the God, what is the cross guard? Now I'm forgetting it. For the katana, the little guard piece. Suba. Yes. His eye patch that he wears to court is the Suba from the duelist that took his eye. He actually just rings it around his head right on top of the scar.
Okay.
Is there a story around how he got that dude? Did he end up killing the duelist in the fight?
I think it was like one of his early duels. He was like a young, brash student, and he challenged somebody he shouldn't have, lost an eye in the battle, but he won by points, and so the duelist he was fighting gave him the Suba as a reward, as kind of like an honorable, hey, you lost an eye, but I'll give you this as recognition. So he wears it like it's a badge of honor.
Okay. So we already know what makes Nate at peace, but someone here who should have the most difficult with feeling at peace is the Cooney, who knows the evil that's out there in the world. So,
Yep.
Cooney, what activity makes your character feel at peace?
Actually, I was just looking at that stuff. And I can't find one of the specific the passions because that's what they link them to that fit what I was trying to go for. Because I view my guy from my character as a bit of a worry word. And so the way I see it is that he gambles as a way of keeping the peace because he believes life is a gamble. The taint is a gamble. The Shadowlands is a gamble. Everything's a gamble. So he maintains that mindset throughout most of his life. As long as he's doing something, he's trying to bet something, try to gamble something. He's always going and going and going.
Always have the courage to roll the dice.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Okay.
Mm.
So
You missed a golden opportunity to be like, always have the courage to drop the dice.
Oh no!
Golden opportunity.
Hey, it was Nate who came up with the phrase. So
there's a passion. It's called Daredevil.
Is there? Let me see.
So that seems like a good idea for you.
Yes, I like it because it matches the advantage I was going for, which is famously lucky.
Yeah, mine was pretty easy to figure out too.
All right. So there you go. So he obtains peace in this chaotic world by gambling and basically being an adrenaline junkie. Fantastic.
I like it.
So the shinobi. You spend a lot of your time in the dark. You have seen things that most people would never see. Not necessarily because you've traveled to the Shadowlands or whatnot, but what I mean is the darkness of humans. You know, the nature of being a person. So what concern, fear, troubles? What gives your character the most restless nights? What keeps him up?
Here's the thing. He does not like to kill. He has done it before. He will continue to do it, but each death haunts him. He longs for a day where he no longer has to do it. So each time before he has to plunge the knife in or twist someone's neck, he always feels that little bit of himself die.
He fears to lose himself.
Okay. So, if you say that, I would say that battle trauma is an anxiety for you. If we go to page 74, it's an anxiety that gives you. Though few speak of it, no samurai returns from war without their share of scars, whether physical, mental, or both. And yours runs deeper than most.
Actually, I was looking at soft-heartedness, which is, if given the choice to kill someone or spare them, I would spare them.
I like it. If that's where you want to go, I think it's great.
Yeah. I am an assassin who's reluctant to kill.
I love it. Love everything about it. All right. So we know that Nate has been a rice farmer for many years, but who did he learn from most in the past?
Who did I learn the most from during my life? I am going to say that I learned the most from my rice farmer wife.
Okay.
She taught me that it doesn't take a noble soul, it doesn't take lofty upbringings, and it doesn't take height of birth, I guess, to be a good person and to serve one's house and family well.
Okay.
She also is indiscriminately shows love to all of her children, two of which were twins, which is supposed to be a bad omen, and she has never thought twice about it. It's never even been a concern on her mind that they were twins. She loves them irrespective.
Okay. So now that we've picked that out, Nate, you would need to take one advantage and one disadvantage.
Okay.
that you've gained from that relationship. So you always said, you already said that, you know, she loved her children regardless, and that's something you learned, and that you don't have to be from a noble birth. So now, as you look at the table of disadvantages and advantages, I think the disadvantage on this one is more important. So what would you think this disadvantage of this relationship would be?
I'm trying to find the table.
Actually, I think he only gets one or the other.
Oh, it's one or the other. You're absolutely right. But I want to hear what a disadvantage to this relationship would be.
I'm trying to find them.
Okay.
What page was it again?
It was 61.
61.
$61 is where the advantages start. I believe
Yes.
a little further is when the
68
disadvantages
is
start.
disadvantages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally at the bottom of 68. That's where pretty much 69, but
Giggity.
hold on, we can only choose one disadvantage and one advantage.
So how it works is you get one advantage, or you can take a skill increase plus a disadvantage.
Yep. But I think that as a narrator, that both, even if you take an advantage, there should still be something negative that you've picked up, a habit, like, and I hate to use this again because, you know, whatever, but I've been watching it recently to finish the series finally. Naruto, you have Shikamaru, who a brilliant mind but lost his mentor. And his mentor had a terrible habit for a ninja. He smoked a lot. He was never seen without a cigarette in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that Shikamaru picked up that was a negative trait. Yeah, me too, Chris. I'm finally getting to the end. And even though he learned so much and he became so much better of a person through his contact with his sensei, he did pick up that negative trait of that sensei as well. And so when we talk about an advantage, every advantage also comes with a disadvantage that maybe isn't mechanically there, but narratively should be there. You know, every person leaves a mark on you, whether positive or negative. So I'd like to, like I said, I'd like Nate to tell me what kind of disadvantage his wife has given him by being around, even if it's not mechanical.
I can think of two, or I see two here that I really like.
Sure.
The first one is Gaijin name, culture, or appearance. I mean, I've created a family. I've spent more than a decade with these people. I've picked up the lowborn habits and quirks and traits unbecoming of a samurai.
Okay.
Or, and I might even like this one better, disdain for a Bushido tenet, particularly righteousness.
I like
That's sort of holier than thou mentality. I think the line clanner big on that one. But regardless, so I honestly I like them both. I would be willing to roll with them both.
I like it. Now, he would, if he chose to take those disadvantage, or that one of those disadvantages, he would gain a skill rank. And I'm not going to force him to take a disadvantage or an advantage there, but I wanted him to really think about the consequence of his wife's existence on his person. L5R, when you roll the dice, you don't just succeed or fail. How the system works is you get a target number. And that number tells you how many successes you need to get to succeed. A non-success on the die, it's called strife. And you can succeed, but strife is there. And it can come up in a positive and negative light. So say in this instance, you know, Nate successfully talks to a lord and attempting to get something that they want. And he's in court, so he's got to be very straight-faced, and he's got to make sure that all he's prim and proper and everything that is correct. But he's gotten several strifes. And now he has something in his past that as a player and as a narrator we can hearken to and say, you know, Nate, this man's righteousness is getting to you. His holier than thou, is I'm better than you, his kiss my ring attitude is really irking you. And even though you can tell that you are succeeding in persuading him, his attitude has really, you know, bothered you. And you succeed, but people can see that you're having trouble dealing with this person. And it really allows the character to have an internal conflict, or even allow a success to be negative in a narrative system, and roll with that. And obviously not everybody's going to want every success to always be negative, but having negative consequences or negativity come out of even a positive is very important to a samurai and to Rukagon and the RP process in general. It helps players evolve. So that is something that Nate has done there, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Nate. So, hold on real quick.
While he's working on that, I did want to talk to Brendan. Brendan, you mentioned your ninja, I think it was to basically spy and put down the crane. I wanted to pose an idea to you. I kind of want my duty to be to protect you. Like, the crane saw this coming, so they assigned me as your Yojimbo to try and combat the nonsense that you're going to try to do to bring us down. Are you cool with that sort of thing?
Yeah, we can definitely flesh that out. I was actually trying to think of ways I was going to maybe trick you into being the person who defended me, since you're the Bushi, and I'm probably going to get into a lot of trouble, so that works out.
A good relationship for us to just get abused by each other's shenanigans.
I mean, you want to duel, and I'll probably be pretty good at invoking people to want to duel me. And that'll be a really good first time, is someone will think I have no one to protect me, and then you just step out.
Yeah, I was real excited, so I wanted to get my opportunity to talk to you about that at some point. So
and I was thinking for my my Nindo, just to offset my sort of spy master duty, that he really just wants people. He wants people he can actually trust, and he wants people to be able to trust him. But the fact that he has to keep secrets gets in the way of that.
I like that.
It. So we're going to go to Tom. Tom, you're Shinobi. What details do others find most striking about your character?
Like, physically? Because, like, as I've said, like, one of his biggest traits is that he is bland as all hell. Like,
so you might stand out for unusual looks, strange fashions. You might have ancestry to the far-flung parts of the empire, even beyond, you know. And minor behavior, like you might chew your lip, you might tug on an ear every so often. They add a little bit of subtle depth. And even though your character, this is the reason I came to you, is because your character is supposed to be very average. What would people, if they were describing you to the magistrates, and they said, I need something to differentiate him between anybody else, what would it be?
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. All
right, go ahead.
Well, since you said that you don't actually want to kill anyone, maybe a little squeamish, like maybe you don't like the sight of violence or just aggression in general, so you sort of shy away from that.
An aversion to blood, maybe, in particular? Like when you do have to kill somebody, you never look.
Interesting. But like, I get the impression from this question it's supposed to be something like visual or something you can like observe.
Absolutely not.
Oh, really?
Absolutely not. No. Why does it need to? If if you committed a crime and there was someone that you had to kill right there, and there was a witness, and you saw the witness as a shinobi, you know that you need to eliminate all witnesses, but you're squeamish enough. That could be something that the witness could notice.
Yeah, it says it could be looks or it can be a behavior that someone could observe from you.
If you're watching a duel and, as a shinobi, you're used to watching quick strikes, the moment that sword is going to strike and you look away every time. Because you just don't like seeing the sight of it.
Well, the character trait is less that he doesn't like death so much as he doesn't like doing it himself.
Okay.
However, to that point, this is sort of tying into like the next question of how he deals with stress. The more and more stressed he gets, the more he tries to blend in. But the problem is he starts taking it too far and he starts shutting down. And people have noticed that like he has a habit of becoming extremely still, like as still as a statue when he's like under extreme stress.
Okay.
To the point that it looks unnatural the way he's standing.
Okay.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So I want to put this out there that the reason that I chose Tom for this is part of one of these things is it says all these things add subtle depth to a character. And then there's an addendum to it that says, and so does the deliberate absence of memorable details. And even though Tom is striving, his character is striving to be as unique or as average, quote unquote, as possible, I think it's a good idea for a character like him to have something that is memorable in some way, some striking feature. So this is an RP thing, and it's just noted in the notes section of your character sheet. You want to make sure that there is something about your character, or if there is nothing, that it's almost eerily deliberate that there is nothing. So we already talked about the next question. Tom brought that up, and that's how a character deals with stress. Now, Tom told us how his character deals with stress, and that's standing still and becoming unnaturally still. But one person that I'd like to know how they deal with stress is the boorish or brutish crab. How do you deal with stress, Cooney? You are muted.
Yeah, I keep on muting myself because I don't want to make noises. I honestly think we went over that a little bit. I deal with stress by pushing the limits slightly. I feel like I create a lot of stress for myself because as much as I view myself as pushing, having luck, and pushing the boundaries, I do that because I really do feel worried about a lot of things. I'm the type to really feel like, any minute the wall's finally gonna break, kind of thing. So I deal with stress by keeping myself busy. Like I don't, because as soon the idle moments make me worry too much. I feel like any idle moment, patience is not my virtue.
Okay.
I like that, actually. Almost to the point that, because he's always so frequently stressed out, that how we perceive him normally, like that's just how he is. That's how he is under like negative stress influence. When he's finally actually calmed down, that's like weird to us.
Yeah, I like it.
I like that.
So, here's one for the manipulator, because I feel like it's most effective to the manipulator. And you know what? I'll even allow Chris to chime in on this one. Bayushi Manipulator, what are your character's pre-existing relationship with other clans, families, organizations, and traditions?
Brendan's muted.
I'm not too sure yet, but I think we have a good thing going on here. Chris brought up something where he wants, my lord is suspicious of the crane, and he's sending me to keep tabs on them on this certain session or game, and through some sort of circumstances, his clan has actually assigned him as a Yojimbo to me, which will prove somewhat interesting. So that'll be the main clan relationship that gets explored, I guess.
Okay, I like it.
And
So
I think from my side is obviously Scorpion being the kind of the connection that we're going to explore here. My character's background, the way that I built him, he has a strong respect for duty. So while he's been assigned to the Scorpion, he's almost empathizing with them. Like, he's slowly coming to the understanding that they have to be the criminal and that they're doing it for a purpose. And just like the crab defends the wall from physical threats, the Scorpion are protecting against psychological threats and social threats. So I think my crane is kind of coming around to Scorpion thinking a little bit.
I noticed that when you mentioned duty before, so I was really happy about that. I think it will be a good interaction.
So the rest of this, these kind of parts are RP stuff, but we're still going to go over them because I think they're important in truly making a character to start. So we're going to go to the monk, who's older, but still needs to figure out how would his parents describe him. That was to Nate. You're muted.
My parents are dead.
I get that. But
I
Talk to their ancestor spirits.
yeah.
No, that's actually kind of a big part of the dragon. So that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't even thought about that. How did my parents describe me? Who were my parents? Were they monks from the order?
That's actually one of the suggested nindos they give is finding out your true heritage if you want that to be a drive for you.
No, not particularly. I think my character's parents would have described him as a little bit of an enigma. Even when he was young, he always preferred to be outside, not just like outside in courtyards. He preferred to be out in nature, far more than he ever preferred to be anywhere constructed. So they would find him playing out in the trees or by rivers, with a certain with a certain quality of observation far beyond his young years. Like, he would notice little things and little traits. He'd notice where the butterflies came and what flowers they like to roost on. And he would bring stuff like that back, and it always kind of surprised his parents when he talked about little things like that.
All right, I like it. Since we talked before about honoring family for the crane, one of the questions is, in Rukugan, it's very common when choosing one's name or receiving a name that you choose to honor a noteworthy ancestor, someone that your parents and you think is worthy of having their name carried down. Now, that doesn't mean that you would directly take their name, but usually you use some sort of part of their name to show it, to try to bestow that part of that person, that ancestor, onto you. So when we talk about that, I'm not saying you have to, give me your name, but who would that be for you, Chris?
So I think it's going to be a grandfather, probably my mother's grandfather, I think.
Okay.
So write that down before I go and forget. Maternal grandfather. My thinking is that it wasn't even like he was somebody really important to the empire. He was just somebody that was more important to the family. Like, he did his job appropriately. Like, nothing fancy. He just was somebody to be respected, and we're honoring him. And because of my natural draw to the ideals of duty, my character kind of took that on, and I think his adult name is actually going to be after his maternal grandfather.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna to chime in there at the end and say that. So normally the system says roll on the Samurai Heritage table, and you know, pick a thing there. I'm okay with allowing players with this sort of thing to kind of choose what they did. So Chris just spoke about, you know, his grandfather, that he wasn't necessarily, he didn't, you know, do a famous deed or anything crazy like that. But he was important to his clan nonetheless, you know, and so maybe he has wondrous work, you know, to his name or something like that. And there are modifiers for that. So I would suggest, and I'm going to tell my players, that if you want to roll because you have difficulty, maybe like Jeremy has difficulty. I'm not saying that Jeremy will, but maybe Jeremy has difficulty on this and decides he wants to roll. He's allowed to roll. At the same time, I feel players should have a little bit of freedom here to kind of flesh out their backstory again and make it their own. So that's a thing. And last, not least, in Rukagon, choosing your personal name. Now, choosing a person's name is kind of different. So you have your family name. You have your... What's up, Chris?
I was going to say, on the chart, I think I like Outsider.
Totally fine.
So I think that's the one I'm going to do. Basically, it was a person who was adopted into the family or doesn't have a direct blood relation, but stood out for services that they performed for the clan.
Sure, I like it. So the reason that I bring up the name issue is, so when Chris is in court, right, or he's working with the Bayushi manipulator, he may say, my name is Daidoji Ryu, and that's his name, right? But on the flip side, when he goes home, his childhood friends are going to call him by a completely different name. And they might, you know, maybe, you know, he got the name Yuki when he was a kid for loving the snow or playing around in the snow or something, or, you know, Tsubasa, because he always had the idea of, you know, just dreaming, and his head was always in the clouds, and his, you know, so these are things that, you know, you should think about when you name your character in Rukagon, because even names have power, political and otherwise. In most other games, your name doesn't really mean much. It's just something that your character is called by. But everything matters, because if Chris goes to court now with his Daidoji, and he says, I'm Daidoji so-and-so, a lord might turn around and go, is there any relation to this person? And if he goes, yes, if this is someone like a unicorn, it may be, oh, you have Gaijin blood. That's cool. So do I. You know, now we get along. On a flip side, if it's someone like the lion, they're going to say, oh, he has Gaijin blood. And they're going to look at him in a different light because he's not true born, so to speak. He's not 100% Rukagani. Or maybe his grandfather wasn't a Gaijin, but was low-born and elevated himself up. And maybe they see him as not being a full, you know, samurai, someone that's undeserving unless his actions prove otherwise. On the flip side, if you were named after someone very important in your clan's past, you know, you could do that name honor, you know, that people might more favorably receive you. So these are things that are important in Rukagon that do have, you know, reasons for existing. But that is the general building of a character. Your character should basically be complete with the exception of one thing. And I know that Drop Dice looks really serial right now. He looks just like... But I'm going to let him, because one of his favorite things is the 20 questions. And I think all of us here, the 6 of us that are here right now, 6 of us, yes, love the 20 questions. But I know that he's gone over it before, and I feel like we're going to get a doji video, or what are they called? A dojo video of the 20 questions at some point. But I want him to kind of give us a brief overview of the 20 questions and what they are and what they represent to character creation.
We do have one more.
I don't see the one more.
The
How should your character
part
die?
7.
I would actually want that to be a question.
Okay.
Because
So
I think
the
it
how
is a
should you
question
die
as well.
can be answered by each of us individually. So yeah, this is the 20 questions video actually. I've been a big fan of the 20 questions since L5R was a thing. It's existed since first edition. I've always really loved it. In fact, I've translated it for generic fantasy use and used it in other games. If you've been following along, you've kind of watched us up to this point, you can see how valuable this stuff is. And if you intend to translate that to your own games, I'd recommend it. But yeah, I'm doing a series. This video happens to be part of them. I'm calling it the L5R Beta Dojo, where we go over everything that's within here. But basically the whole idea is there are 20 questions that are narratively designed to build a character that makes sense narratively to the world, to its own story, and for the player to be able to use and manipulate. But on the flip side, as the GM, what I would typically do is collect up all of these 4-page documents, and I would keep these inside my GM section, because this is going to be the stuff that I'm going to find stories from. The Fantasy Flight game is actually really good about that. If you go to their GM section, they actually have a thing that talks about building a campaign, and it tells you to look at very specific things during character creation, that these are the things that you want to play up, the things you want to explore. To kind of toss back to a previous game on this channel, the 3 Feet from Death series, one of Murdoch's characters was interested in finding out what happened to his ancestor. And while I didn't shine light on that too much, towards the end of the first season, we started to find out more and more and more of what was going on. Another character for that would be Tom's character, the dragon character he played in there. We slowly revealed more, and then when it hit him, and like we actually spotlighted what his character's past was and where his 20 questions really got their meat and potatoes, it was like a freight train. It changed the whole tone of the game. So as a GM, these are kind of your guiding light to campaign design with L5R.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that being said, I think we've done the show, or done this character gen pretty good justice. Would you say you feel satisfied, Chris?
Absolutely.
Starting soon, TM. Hopefully we'll run the adventure out of the book. I do not mind if people read it as far as the players or whatever are concerned. I expect when everybody shows up next week for everybody to have a working knowledge of the beta. It's 210 pages, but most of that, surprisingly enough, is character creation, which I love. So make sure that you guys are ready for that. If the audience wants to do that, to read it as well and kind of, help us test this game, it's going to be fantastic the way that I look at it. We want to put this game through its paces, see where the design flaws are, see where they maybe drop the ball, and on the flip side, see what really works. And I think that that's the key of what this beta should be, is to help make the best game that they can make. So that's what we have to look forward to here. I know Chris is also planning on running a home campaign, a 3 Feet from Death set, are using this system as well. So that's a thing, and I'm totally open, to that. And I hope that I'll be playing in that, but I'm not sure if that's a thing yet. I think he's got to decide his players. So
yeah, my player base will actually be chosen from these people here. These are the guys that I've always run L5R, at least as far as the channel's been alive. So they get first dibs on the campaign. I will be doing vignettes, which I plan to recruit from one of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of called Absolute Tabletop. They're a great group of people to recruit and join any games, really, for one-shots or campaigns. So if you have not joined them, make sure that you do, so that when I do a vignette and we talk about what's going on in Scorpion Lands, you can be a bunch of scorpions running around doing scorpion things.
Scorpion people doing scorpion things.
Yes, Tom. Yes.
So without further ado, I'm going to sign out because Chris always does it, but this was my lead today. We will see you at the gaming table.